Hi, this is Lorraine, and I've been guided to create another video. If you'll give me a minute to clear, center, and balance my energy, we'll get started. Please feel free to ask questions in the comments, and please see the timestamps to navigate the video. The first thing I wanted to talk about was I was sitting and thinking about 3i Atlas and a few other things, and what came in was terraforming. The terraforming that I talked about when 3i Atlas came through and it hit perihelion. And just for a brief review, what came in was that there were particles being projected at the Earth through the sun, and that there were AI technology attached to each of those particles that were directing it to our planet. And when those particles came into our atmosphere, they were being placed there or projected there to create to clear the planet and prepare it for first contact. And what also came in was that this clearing, these particles that are coming through, are meant to create what has been described to me as a lock. So when information has come into me in the past, it was explained to me that the work I've done expands me to a place where I am able to move past the locks and keys and codes that have been placed on the 3D to keep the 3D in that 3D level of consciousness at that vibration. And the work we do to expand beyond that 3D vibration allows us to bypass or move through those locks and keys and codes that have been put in place to prevent I'll just use the term lower vibrations, or the people or persons who have not, or energies who have not done the work, to prevent them from moving to these higher levels of consciousness or expansion and reaping havoc. And it's very intentional. This is very intentional. So these nanites, this energy, these particles being projected into our atmosphere are not only meant to prepare our space, our planet, and the people who are transcending for expansion and transcendence, but also it places a lock on this space, on our planet, in the atmosphere, that prevents for lack of a better term, lower vibration energies from moving into that 5D level of consciousness. This came through very clearly, and so I wanted to share that. Again, individuals not expanding or moving to the 5D, that's not punishment. It's just we all have to work on ourselves to help each other, or to help ourselves grow and expand, so that we're ready to move to that higher level of consciousness within the physical form. So this is the divine consciousness, considering what it can be and asking itself, challenging itself to move beyond the perceptions of its own awareness and grow and become something new. And as I'm saying that, I'm seeing a rose blossom. So this consciousness, we are beings of many capacities, many abilities, and we are stretching ourselves to the furthest reaches of what we can possibly be. And so we have now moved ourselves to a place where we have experienced so much and been able to bring ourselves back to center and maintain balance, that we have earned the privilege of expanding to higher levels of consciousness. And I just feel like that's very important to say. I feel it's very important for us to acknowledge that we have done an incredible amount of work. And as challenging as it has been, we have been successful. And as much as it may not seem like that we have been successful, we are. And I'll talk about that more in the video. So what I have in my journal is terraforming creates a lock between the 3D and the 5D. And the next thing I was strongly guided to talk about was last week I talked about a spiritual walkabout. I had gone to Croatia, the Dalmatian Islands in Croatia, Old Jerusalem in Israel, and I went to Warsaw and Krakow and Auschwitz. So I was guided to talk about Auschwitz again because I forgot something, and I realized I didn't write it in my journal, but this is something that was very deep. The whole trip I was doing what I needed to do, walking around everywhere, experiencing what I was meant to experience, and every night I was literally in tears. I felt broken, I felt bloodied, I felt raw, and it was part of my awakening. It was part of my expansion, and it was the first time I had like a really strong deluge of past lives come back to me. So in Auschwitz, what I saw was very upsetting, but it was important for me to see it, because in one of my past lives, me, my mother, and my brother died, and my father, I believe, survived, but I didn't get a lot of information about my father in that lifetime. But I do remember specifically my mother and me being separated from my father and my brother. I do remember my brother running towards me and my mother and coming with us. I was about 3 or 4 years old. My brother was about 9 years old. My mom was in her early to mid-20s. My dad was a little older than her. I do remember us being separated. I do remember us being among the first that went to Auschwitz and the first to die. I do remember my mother holding me and my brother as we were in the showers, and I remember her trying to protect us from the gas. I remember her dying first. I remember my brother then trying to cover me to protect me. I remember him dying. And then I remember myself dying. And I remember meeting them on the other side. And I walked through Auschwitz, and I saw how they picked apart people like cars. They took their teeth out. They used their hair to stuff pillows. It was very emotional for me. The message that came through that was hard for me to comprehend in the moment was, this can happen again. There must be a catalyst for change. And I remembered that past life regression that I talked about in the last video, where I was pulled out of my body and I went to the void and I saw Earth through the wormhole, and that message of there must be a catalyst for change. And at that time, again, I was in the beginning of this massive awakening that I've been going through for the last 10 years. And so everything was about my growth, right? You must be a catalyst for change. So I doubled down on my spiritual work. And I've always been a spiritual person since a very young age. And so I was heavily committed. I am heavily committed. And when I had that vision and that message came in from Auschwitz, when I was in Auschwitz, I doubled down, and I just have been incredibly focused since then. The most important message is though that it's not just me that's the catalyst for change. That is a collective you. You are the catalyst of for change. And I didn't because it was, I was going through what I was going through in that time. At that time, I perceived it as me, but now I know it's you collectively, humanity. You are the catalyst for change. We are the catalyst for change. They said, this doesn't happen again. This doesn't have to happen again. You are the catalyst for change. They meant us. We are the catalyst. And I just want to share that with you so you think about what you are here to do and what you can do within yourself, because it doesn't mean you have to go anywhere. The greatest change happens in the higher realms. The greatest change happens through our consciousness and our connection to the divine. Our awareness of our own inner alchemy. That's what just came in. Alchemy, our own inner power to transmute everything around us. And we do that by shifting our perception. How do we see the world around us? But I'm sorry, I need to get back to, we are the catalyst for change. So think about what you're here to do, what you do, what your own discipline is, and how you can be a catalyst for change, or how you are a catalyst for change. I had a vision. It was very quick, and I didn't think anything about it. It was a building, and it was about 5 to 10 stories high, and then it grew really tall. And then it blew up, and then this massive surge of water came and just like pummeled it and just cleared what had exploded. And I didn't think anything about it, and I just thought that was kind of weird, and I walked away. And then I didn't walk away, but I didn't write it in my journal, and I just kept on walking because it happened when I was walking somewhere. And what I realized is it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for what's happening right now. You could see it as, I'm in the US, you could see it as the US, or you can see it globally. But what has happened is we were this small thing, and now we've grown and expanded to this large skyscraper. So the building grew into a skyscraper. And so we have expanded to this place, this massive place. But we were built on an unstable foundation. And because of that unstable foundation, the building collapsed. It exploded, it collapsed, however you want to look at it, but it collapsed. And then this surge of water cleared that broken building. And when I work with energy, I also see the energy as water. So to me, that water was energy coming through and clearing out that space. And it's clearing out the space to build something new. Okay? And I also, when I was like having that epiphany and figuring out what that vision was, I saw Bernard Donnelly Bernstein, the object or comet, whatever they're calling it. And I refer to that as the comic sweeper. I talked about it a lot when I was talking about Three Eye Atlas, but it's a comet that's coming under, or an object or asteroid. I can't remember. I wrote it in my journal. C214 UN 271 Bernard Donnelly Bernstein. It's coming under our solar system. So it's not coming, I think they call it the ecliptic plane. It's coming under that. And what came in very strong is it's the cosmic sweeper. It's clearing all the remnants of the old. So as the old falls away, the cosmic sweeper is absorbing it, sucking it up, magnetizing it, and drawing it to it. And you can see it literally or as a metaphor. But I felt that it literally is like, through magnetism, is drawing the negative or unbalanced energy towards it. The other thing is we're in a very powerful gateway of transition. We are sitting between the two solar and lunar eclipses. So we had one at the end of February and beginning of March, and then we'll have another solar and lunar eclipse in August. And what came in very strong is we are in this powerful, powerful gateway. And I keep on seeing like very tumultuous water, and I feel tumultuous energy. And I've been incredibly fatigued. It's been very challenging for me personally, but I keep moving forward. But what has come in is Jupiter's also has been exalted in Cancer, right? And so what came in very strongly is we're in this powerful gateway between the eclipses, and Jupiter is in its last month, I believe, of being exalted in Cancer, and this unbalanced energy is really trying really hard to douse and diminish that energy. But really, it's unstoppable. Okay, what's happening is unstoppable. And there's more I'm going to talk about that came in, but it's so important to understand we are in a very powerful transition, even though we look around and the world seems a little desperate. It's important not to focus on that. It's important to embrace it with love and healing energy, and as well as work on maintaining your perspective and maintaining a balanced point of view. And I know that can be very challenging. I fall out of center every now and then, but as soon as I acknowledge it, I move myself back. I use my tools to move myself back. But it's very important to understand or to acknowledge this transition so we know how the energy is. We sense how the energy is, and we understand it's like this for a purpose. It's part of the transition. I typically don't do this. I'm not sure why. I don't really reach out for information. I just allow the information to come in as it's meant to come in, and then I share it as it comes in. I feel that's very important, to honor that whatever comes in is meant to come in. But I felt like it was really important to touch back on a few things. And so I guess what I did was remote viewing. I reached out to the amphibious being I refer to as the ambassador, who is at the quasi moon, what is it, PN7 asteroid 2025 PN7. It's a quasi moon. It's going to be orbiting Earth for, I think, 80 years. And that is where I received the information that it's actually a trans-dimensional gateway, or there is a trans-dimensional gateway there, and that quasi moon is a staging area. And I reached out to the amphibious being I meet in that space, and he was standing as a sentinel. And he was very stoic, and he was essentially guarding the trans-dimensional gateway. And then I reached out to 3i Atlas, and it just communicated back, my work here is done. So whatever 3i Atlas was meant to do, it's done, and that gateway is being guarded right now. So there is no movement through that gateway presently. We are vessels. The next message that came in is we are vessels of transmutation. It is us, through our words, actions, and intentions and thoughts, who create the change that has already occurred. The story is the distraction. The story being told is the distraction to the occurrence. The change has already happened. So the reason why I brought up to show love and compassion and surround the energy, that unbalanced energy, with love, is because all those things that are happening around us are created as distractions. It's meant to distract us from what we should be focusing on, and that's our transition, and that's our transcendence, transmutation, however you want to look at it. It's meant to redirect us away from that. And when that happens, we miss the signs of spring, the signs of the transition. And so I ask you to find in your way what that means for you to stay centered and balanced and focused on your own inner alchemy, your own inner transition, because your inner transition affects me in the most beautiful way, and mine affects you. We're all connected as we transcend through this in this process. But I received that message many times over the last 6 years. The transition has already happened. We are merely going through the motions of the story. Okay, we are merely going through the motions of this existence. But the transition through the mind of the divine consciousness has already happened. And what that means to someone who's living from a past, present, and future place, the divine consciousness has already decided that this world will transcend, and that those of us who have done the work will transcend with this world. It is important not to feed or give power to the story. It's important not to feed or give power to the story that's happening around us. So we can't deny it, we see it every day, but we can't succumb to it. We can't give into it. We can't make it part of our reality. Because our reality is a reality of transitioning to expanded levels of consciousness, to beauty, to love, to all the things we want. So as that building comes down, and that's what's happening, that building, we see it coming down and clearing, that's the space where our world begins, where our truth begins, where our reality that we're creating through our own inner alchemy blooms from, blossoms from. Okay? Give me a minute and let me see if anything else comes in. The final thing I wanted to say was I feel like I need to take a few weeks of a break. As I said during the video, I've been feeling a lot of fatigue, and I've honestly been overworking myself a bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but I will definitely be back. And I just want to say I am so incredibly grateful for the people who have been here on my channel and supporting me. I am incredibly grateful. I'm incredibly grateful for your presence. I'm so grateful for the interactions. I truly, truly appreciate the interactions, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. I'll see you soon.